I'm really cheered to welcome everybody to tonight's poetry reading by Nate Marshall. It is a moment for celebrations. It always seems celebratory to me to sit in a little room and sing songs to each other. One among us, I don't think she's here, a senior creative writing student, Aiden Van Soutendale. Is Aiden here? No, you should know this. Just found out today that 2 of her own poems have been accepted for publication in a big national magazine. So celebrate with her when you see her. And we are here at the beginning of Black History Month to celebrate the past and present and future of Black artists, politicians, teachers, moms and dads, citizens and students and neighbors and ourselves and each other. And to be with us tonight with all of these causes for happiness is Nate Marshall, whose presence is our special cause for celebration tonight. Nate Marshall is the 2017 GLCA Book Award winner for poetry. His book, Wild Hundreds, didn't say that right. That's okay. Wild Hundreds appeared a few months ago from the University of Pittsburgh Press and was judged to be the single finest first book of poetry published in the United States last year. That's pretty good, right? This book sizzles with the voices of Chicago's South Side, just like Gwendolyn Brooks's poems did. And it coheres with a wonderful formal dexterity and surprise. There's a guzzle hidden there among the blues. There's an imagist moment among the many-voiced narratives. There's a long history of struggle where boys are beaten and crack open, and ragtown crime don't stop, among the tenderness and joy that grow right out of the language. Marshall's poems speak and they sing. They indict and praise. They remember and they look forward with rigor. As Lorraine Van Cleef Stefanon writes, these breaks make a percussive imperative that thumps love in the heart of this fine, tender-hearted debut. Nate's other book is an important new anthology which he co-edited, The BreakBeat Poets, New American Poetry in the Age of Hip Hop. You may even have this fantastic book. In fact, I know at least one of you has this fantastic book, my copy. Where the hell is my book? Bring me my damn book. Nate is well known. He's famous in Chicago and far beyond for his readings and for his advocacy of young writers in open mics and performances and slams and schools. He's been a Cave Canem Fellow, a member of the Dark Noise Poetry Collective. He holds an MFA in poetry from the University of Michigan and has won a wall full of awards for his work on the page and out loud. I try to reach for poetry as this most expansive thing, he says in an interview in Lit Hub. I believe that poetry, like all art, has the ability to cut across all kinds of identities. I don't think you do that by being bland and not being challenging. I think about my work speaking to young people and young Black kids and people who poetry isn't necessarily written for. Tonight's reading and 2 days of meetings and conferences are all brought to you by the sponsorship of the English Department and the Harriet Ewins Beck Fund for Visiting Writers. So, Nate Marshall.
Yo, that was great. Mostly because there was like a vague threat. And I wish all introductions for me like came with like someone just being like, "Where's my shit? Come on, fam. Why you playing?" All right. This is loud. I'm gonna move it like down because I'm a loud person. Cool. That's not what we're here for. All right. At all. I'd like sing a lot of songs because I don't know what to say to people. So I just am always like populating my life with music. I'm gonna read this because my friend Hanif is here, and it reminds me of his jacket. It's true. So this poem is called Woo-Wop Da Bam. Woo-Wop Da Bam is like, so I'm working on this new book. The book is called Finna. And so this book is thinking a lot about language and vernacular and like the way in which we use language. And the phrase "Woo-Wop Da Bam" is like, I guess like a Chicago, sort of like Black Chicago like saying. And it essentially means like this, that, and the third, or so on and so forth. But if you if you listen to hip hop, it's a thing that you'll sometimes like hear like MCs say or sort of reference. So like, you know, Kanye or whomever. So this is called Woo-Wop Da Bam. By the time you get this transmission, we'll already be off this planet or on the bus heading downtown, scratch bombing our last will and testament into some commuter's view. Here's the thing. Everything you don't know is intentional, either by you or by us. Don't act like you mad you can't hear the words we radio edited out. You remember that scene in White Men Can't Jump when the question of listening and hearing is raised? You knew then there could be nothing between us except rhythmic static. You know our whole dialect is a rawhide stretched into a hand clap, a record scratch, a jive so unintelligible it must be genius. You seen us leaning against the whole world with one foot up, cocked back like a prayer. You seen us in your corporate offices, creeping in black as something black and live. We know your slang too, better than you. We invented that and gave it to you for whatever winter equinox holiday you prefer. We know African American is how you say nigger in a boardroom. We're hip to your myriad of words for desertion or starvation or genocide. Even our conversation filler is a conjuring. The dark cousin of your whatchamacallit and thingamajig. Our whole stee's a code you can't break, can't even dent, can't fade in the least, and we see you finna try. Cool. Poems are weird. So so little poem I like, since it's Black History Month, or as I like to call it by its original name, which is Negro History Week. So happy Negro History Week. Shout out to my man's Carter G. Woodson. So this is my little Black History Month poem. When America writes about Black life, they prefer the past. Tense. That's the poem. That's it. All right. What do I? Which one? New thing, old thing. Actually, I'll do this. So my name is Nate Marshall, which maybe you knew. Sorry. But I'm shockingly not the only person in the world named Nate Marshall. There's another gentleman named Nate Marshall. We are not the same. So the other Nate Marshall is a white supremacist, and yeah, it's true. So I have a bunch of poems about the other Nate Marshall. So this is one of those poems. This is called Nate Marshall is a White Supremacist from Colorado. Or Nate Marshall is a poet from the south side of Chicago. Or I love you, Nate Marshall. When I first made my name Nate, I was just a boy at summer camp, looking for cool in the muggy shadows, and so when the white boy snipped Nathaniel to just a touch of the tongue to the mouth roof, it seemed to me a religious moment, a new confirmation as okay. This was 2000, and you had been Nate Marshall for decades by then. Years later, I find you buried in a Google search of myself, and I follow you silently for the next year like a high school crush. I tell my students about you, the day when we wonder who we could have been if privilege hadn't put us in a college classroom. I tell my ex about you in bed, and it's convenient that there's this other Nate Marshall to be the liar lying there this time. I see your failed run for office, and I think about how your ties to white supremacists spelled your demise. The Black History Month paper I wrote on the Black Panthers in 3rd grade wouldn't color me radical enough, and I am ashamed I've never been pushed out of a spotlight for loving my people too much. Your day job is roofing, and I just watch HGTV in hotels. You are the truer amongst us, Nate. You, peddler of propaganda and seller of shingles. Can you show me how to love what you love? Every time I've said, what's good, nigga, it's possible we've matched our mouths symmetrical around the 2 G's in the middle. I won't lie to you, Nate Marshall, or to myself, Nate Marshall. I too have hated a nigga and lived to tweet the tale. I too have sat suspicious in my basement, wondering who was coming from my country. I too have Googled myself and found a myself I despise. I see you, Nate Marshall, and now you've left Twitter after I told my followers to tell you that they loved you and your book and your commitment to Black people. And I feel you, Nate Marshall. I've left places and loves when they told me they loved a Nate Marshall I didn't recognize. Cool. Yo, shout out to the other, well, I kind of shout out to him. I don't know, it's complicated. Yeah, it's complicated. That's my, everyone has that weird big cousin. Like that's the way I'm gonna just think about that from now on. All right, so this one is called Another Nate Marshall Poem. Also, you should know this poem, it uses things that the other Nate Marshall posted on my Facebook author page. You'll probably be able to tell what pieces are him. But yeah, another Nate Marshall poem. Again, the white me on the internet appears, and this time he wants what is his. Our name is a country he claims for himself. You need to quit using my name. It is not your name. You are fake. I am Nate Marshall. You are filth. Nate Marshall calls Nate Marshall all this. Nate Marshall calls Nate Marshall a terrorist. Nate Marshall names Nate Marshall the other. In one episode, Nate Marshall types from inside a bar. In one episode, Nate Marshall types from Ferguson. In one episode, Nate Marshall has friends shouting down Nate Marshall. In one episode, Nate Marshall worries Nate Marshall may erase him. Every Nate Marshall I know lives in a crime scene. One Nate Marshall deletes the other. Every Nate Marshall I know has an unruly name, a word he can't trace back. One Nate Marshall deletes himself. Every Nate Marshall I know is mistaken. Cool. My man's Nate Marshall. That dude is wild. So, actually, I'll read one more new thing, and then I'll do some stuff from the book, and then I'll go back and forth. So I was having a conversation in the earlier today in the conferences, and we were talking about like African American vernacular. So there's this thing in Black vernacular, but it's also present in other languages, just happens to not be present in English, called the habitual beat, right? So many of y'all probably use the habitual beat or heard people use it and thought of it as like improper English, but it's actually not. It has a logic that's separate from just saying something regular. So the habitual beat is if I were to say, I'd be writing these poems, right? That is different. That is fundamentally different. It has a different logical construction than saying, I write poems, or I am writing a poem, or I am writing poems, right? It actually means a different thing. So this poem is called Habitual. It's a sonnet. I be, but I don't is. I been, and I am one who be on my own biz. I love, not a be, but see, no, I've been loved. I'm one who been that and then not deserved much. 'Cause I've been on my own dirt, I don't know love. I've been a lie, but don't be a lie. I be fly sometimes, but don't be a fly. Sometimes I be addict-like, but not high like an addict's like. Just scratching low stones like an addict might. Stop, not an option. I be getting mine, been getting over, been over this, but be caught in a cycle. But you be what you be, and it be good. And I be moved and making new habits. Cool. Yeah. Poems are mad funny. It's great. It's awesome too because like all those times when my mom would like try and correct me as a kid, she'd be like, "You're not like that's improper grammar." Now I'm like an English professor. I'm like, "Actually, mother," and then she like hits me because she's like, "Actually, still your mom, right?" It's like, all right, cool. My mom is great. She's very cool. I'll read this poem. So this is called Learning Gang Handshakes, and it's after the poet Lucille Clifton. My one hand holding tight to the neighborhood, stubborn and still. This hand has never been crooked, never cradled the love or hate side of a pistol, never punched with no regret. My hand is small, hairless as a newborn, my wrist thin as a promise breaking. This is shaking up in the park. The big boys have deemed me not soft today. They see the way I ball, a blur and menace, wild as a punch landed in the wrong stomach or a bullet through the big picture window lodged into a living room wall. I dive into concrete for the loose ball, stroke heavy at arms, swim in a pool of blood that we still won't call a personal foul. Have you played a pickup game running red from 3 distinct places on your person? If not, then don't throw up any sign of the South Side. When the big boys taught me how to hug with palms, I learned the secret. Shaking up looks like violence and love, and it is. The fingers at the end freeze in a pose like sutra, bent only an inch away from breaking. Both partners in the dance of hands know they could crush the knuckle of the other. They know all is one. They whisper, this fusion in mean mug, my other hand. Come, celebrate. Cool. I don't read that poem a lot. That's weird. Cool. So I enjoy gardening, and it's a thing that I liked as a kid, but I didn't really have any I had no real facility or ability to learn all that much about it. There was just one point where I dug up part of the carport, kind of the middle, in front of where my mom would park, and I had some seed packets, and I just put stuff, dug it up, and it was okay, this is my garden, so whatever. So this poem is called Picking Flowers. Trying to think, is there anything I should know? Probably not. No. Picking Flowers. Grandma's rose bush, reminiscent of a vice lord's do-rag. The unfamiliar bloom in Mrs. Bradley's yard banging a gangster disciple style blue. The dandelions all over the park putting on Latin King gold like the Chicano cats over east before they turn into a puff of smoke like all us colored boys. Picking dandelions will ruin your hands, turn their smell into a bitter cologne. A man carries flowers for 3 reasons. He is in love, he is in mourning, he is a flower salesman. I'm on the express train passing stops to a woman. Maybe she's home. I have a bouquet in my hand laid on one of my arms like a shotgun. The color is brilliant. A gang war wrapped and cut diagonal at the stems. I am not a flower salesman. That is the only thing I know. Cool, thank you. Also, I really appreciate y'all. Y'all oh, yeah, I like this. I know this. I'm yeah, gas me up. Gas me up. That's fantastic. Is there anyone here from Chicago? Oh, snap. Where are people from?
Wicker Park.
Wicker Park? Oh, yeah, I know that place. I work over there.
Norwood Park.
What?
Norwood Park.
Oh, yes, I know that.
Old Urban Park.
Old Urban Park, very good. A lot of Northsiders. Cool. Anyone else? What's up?
Logan Square.
Okay, yeah, I know Logan Square.
I'm from West Garfield Park.
Oh, you from West Side? All right, cool.
Lincoln Square.
Dang, okay, cool. No Southsiders. It's terrible. It's terrible. Denison, what are y'all doing? It's awful. It's awful. I quit. No, I'm joking. Okay, cool. There's enough Chicagoans in here that I will do this poem. This poem is called When I Say Chicago. I wrote it last year. It was commissioned, which is very strange, by Chicago Magazine. So they emailed me one day and they're like, "Oh, so you're a poet?" And I'm like, "Yes, this is true." And they were like, "Have you ever read this Carl Sandburg poem that he has about Chicago?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fam, I've heard of it." And they're like, "Okay, could you do that, but for now?" And I'm like, "That's wild. This is why magazines are a dying form." But certainly, because I enjoy checks. And challenge and writing prompts, I don't know, man. When you have a job that's when someone is I will pay you to write something, I'm like, great. Awesome. Now so whatever. All right. That was all right. This is called When I Say Chicago. Capital city of the flyover. Crown jewel of the jailhouse. A town in love with its own blood. A blood browned on its own history and funk. The hometown of the riot and the riot gear. The gang and the loitering law. Misfit blocks of dark-skinned cousins and thick-knuckled Slavic uncles who call each other their worst names. What this country know about a rust belt dipped in salt and vinegar and sold is marked up in rustic. My city is the city. Not your close enough suburb, not subject to the suppression of tape and the tapping of phones? How can you say anything about our blocks and schools and children that you refuse to see? You do not govern what you do not love. When I say Chicago, I mean that first Haitian cat who could pronounce it right. I don't mean the fresh out of undergrad looking for adventure and a consulting job. When I say Chicago, I mean the stopped and frisked. I mean the euphemism of frisk. I mean the beat down and tight cuff. I mean the drop off in Bridgeport or Mount Greenwood. I mean the lessons taught to an uppity one. When I say Chicago, I mean the lake, and I mean all of it. I mean the candy lady at Rainbow and the paleta man at Calumet and the kids careening across the green at Montrose and the jogger in midwinter daring a death for fitness. When I say Chicago, I mean Cabrini and Stateway and Ickes and Ida. I mean the city I'll tell my kids in the past tense. I mean the rents that sometimes make me mean Georgia or Indiana or Dalton. When I say Chicago, I mean the restaurants with no chairs, just a window and a bulletproof sneeze guard. I mean a Michelin star for all the ethnics slanging their seasoned meats and language. When I say Chicago, I mean my mama's house. That was my grandma's house. I mean the neighborhood that was our neighborhood, because fear left and we said, we'll make a home here and we'll stay. Cool. Poems. Sorry, that was ridiculous. All right. Okay, cool. Okay. I'm trying to think how much longer should I read? All right. Is there any water anywhere? Oh, snap. It's lit. Cool. All right, I'll read this. This is a ghazal, a huzzle. I don't know how to say that word. People always say it different ways, and I'm like, whatever. So this is like an old Persian form, but I quite like them. This one is called Hecky Nal. Hecky Nal is like the way when I was a kid in Chicago, you'd hear like, that was like the way that like as a kid you could say like hell no and not get in trouble. So like Hecky Nal was like the, so like you'll sometimes hear like on like very early, like Kanye's first album, he has one of the hooks is like, oh, Hecky Nal, that boy is raw, right? So it's like it's a thing, whatever. This poem is called Hecky Nal. Before hell was an address, we knew to call. We were only allowed to utter Hecky Nal. The extra Y as if a question hanging in air. Can we get some more, Mom? Hecky Nal. At the courts, we were picked up or picked on. Can I run in the next game? Negro? Hecky Nal. When Kanye was cartographer of our grammar, first album, he told us all Hecky Nal, that boy is raw. And of course, we all wanted to be so uncooked, so rare. Were we? Hecky Nal. Just a bunch of grayed knees and hard heads. Nate and his boys playing manhood. Convincing? Hecky Nal. Cool. I just like that I can make poems that are just like these things that I just said as a child. Truly. Anybody use lotion like on a regular basis? All right, some of you. I see your heads nodding. Cool. I hope you should stay moisturized. I'm saying, winter in the Midwest is hard. It's not an easy time. This is a poem about lotion. It's called "My Mother's Hands." There's like this thing. It's like When your mom has like extra lotion on her hands and she's like, come here. I'm not the only person who's ever experienced this. Don't make it weird. Don't make it weird. All right. My mother's hands would moisturize my face from jaws inward. The days when she had too much on her hands, after one of the times daddy left or didn't show, she still shone, still made smooth her every rough edge, heel to brow, hug my temples with slick hands as if to say, son, be mine, as if to say, this I give you, as if to say, we are people color of good oak, but we will not burn. We survive every fire without becoming ash. That's it. Yeah, for real, stay moisturized. That's the moral of that poem. Cool. So I taught at another GLCA school for about a year and a half. I taught at Wabash College, which is a very lovely institution in a very weird part of America. The poet Ezra Pound taught there in like around the turn of the 20th century. He taught there for like half of a school year and got fired and like they basically like paid him the rest of his money to just leave. And when he spoke about his time there, he called Crawfordsville, Indiana, where Wabash is, the sixth circle of hell. So this poem is called Dispatch from the Sixth Circle. I count the Confederate flags around town. A surprise, considering the geography. What earnest confusion. Honest mistake it takes to fly a rebel flag in the North. This makes the most sense. Us turning against us. The cannibal instinct. The vote against self. Self-hate is something I've known too. Hear the way my voice lilts too many ways. My vocabularies wrestle themselves, scrap amongst the street in between my teeth. Watch my mouth slang and stutter into eloquence. Watch my mouth whistle, this simple, Dixie. Cool. Okay, I'll read just like a few more things. So again, like I'm writing this book, Finna, and I'm dealing with like a lot of like slang and sort of vernacular English. So this poem is called Fit 11, which is my favorite number. If you don't know how much Fit 11 is, it's a lot more than little, but not quite everything. This is called Fit 11. How much is owed to those who wore the chains, who tilled the land, who nursed the babes, who mixed the grits, who fried the food, who chopped the wood, who picked the bowls, who ran the road, who fought the war, who shared the crop, who made the name, who wore the noose, who blacked the codes, who sparked the schools, who juked the blues, who showed the soul, who left the South, who stayed the course, who caught the hell, who marched the march, who broke the strike, who struck the blow, who took the vote, who held the hood, who housed the club, who queered the notes, who spun the jams, who funked the flow, who built the thing, who built the thing, who built the thing, you know. Take the payment you ain't give for all that and press it down, make it overflow, fit 11 times, and give me that in my own numbers of my own currency. Poems are mad fun. What do I want to read? Okay, so yeah, so I'm thinking about I'm thinking about language, and in that, right, some of the language I'm unpacking and thinking about is trying to think about like the language that we have around gender and around like sex, and so this poem kind of comes from that exploration. I don't think I've ever read this in public, so no shit. All right, cool. This is called "The Homies Ask If I'm Trying to Smash." Our language for sex: stain, smash, bang, beat, hit. This is where we live. A land of impact and soiling. A gaggle of boys boasting over hurt. Our tongues wagging. Stupid flags of a dumb country. Our love for each other measured in what we lord over. We, poor timekeepers, consider our preposition here, bros before. We anti-historians, we unmakers of ourselves, we failures of science and courage, we ugly, we ugly, we ugly. We a bankrupt vernacular, a slang is prophecy, a linguistic imperative toward pain. Yeah. Cool. So I'll read three more things. At dinner, me and Hanif were talking about just all the traveling that we have to do. And it's one of the things that's weird about like being a writer, being a poet, sometimes is like you travel a lot and so little of it is for leisure, at least like in the sort of life that, I've led and many of my friends lead. So this poem is called Ode to Vacation. Oh, word I know the meaning of, but don't know. When I was young, you were a drive to see family and attend a convention with my parents. There was the lone trip to a water park in Wisconsin, and that is the end of us. But you must remember the week we had in South Carolina with my best friend's family. We went on plantation tours to see all the gardens, the beautiful flowers, and all I could see was the blood. I still wonder who keeps ground on those plots now, though I think I can guess. I don't get you vacation, or rather, I don't give you the time. I don't take the time. I'm from 2 jobs at minimum and retiring only to turn the house into a home business. The story goes that more than one of my relations used to visit dope houses in their work uniforms, and maybe the high is also an occupation. I have tax forms and under the table work falling out of my head like hair. I haven't seen a week of mine end since I was at least 18. Vacation, you a lie. And I don't lie down for much of anything these days. In Guatemala, we met again, vacation, and I asked you not to take me. But we are here with an ex-love because the flights were paid and the trip planned. On the plane home, she got an upgrade to first class and made me sit next to her because the seat was empty, though I was still coach. And 45 minutes into the flight, they checked my ticket and I got moved back where I belonged. Cool. It's also a true story. Don't ever do that. Don't ever just try and go into first class because they will move you. They'll be like, excuse me, sir. Can I see your ticket? It's not a fun feeling. So, does anyone know who the rapper Too Short is? All right, some people. All right, apparently I'm old now. Damn, I'm washed. All right, so Too Short is a rapper from Oakland. His raps are very vulgar. They are mostly about pimping and cocaine. That's true. That is. Those are his major themes. Um, he was one of my mom's favorite rappers. He has a song called "Cuss Words" that's like 8 minutes long, and it is very vulgar. It came out in like 1989, and still, if you were to hear it, you'd be like, "Oh my god." Yeah, yeah. That's really all you need to know about that. Listen to it on your own, because I will like turn red if I have to like sit up here and recite Too Short lyrics. But you should know that this poem is called "My Mom's Favorite Rapper Was Too Short," and this is sort of about like if you've ever had this is probably an experience that many of you all have had like as young people, particularly like coming to knowledge in the university setting, where you like learn something that kind of makes something that you love problematic, and you're like, oh damn, but I really like, this thing, but it kind of sucks. It's kind of like politically terrible, but I love it. So this is about that experience. My mom's favorite rapper was Too Short. Before I could talk, I could stalk Oakland streets in my mind. I'm a cuss word, pitched at the tip of a tongue, sung like an omen. Women were the first I saw hum this lullaby. My mama told me about the White House and selling cocaine, Nancy Reagan's business prowess. My big sister helped me count cold cash money, slap snaps at suckers like a pimp. You motherfuckers thought I was gonna change my style? All the while I'm here holding what I learned. By the time I was 5, I knew "Man, You Still Alive" by heart, the hardest lyric in our whole song. I'm the age to be that plot twist now. How can I unlearn some of the curses that were the first spells I saw conjured? I wrote this rhyme for you. You might not like my rap, and you'd be right. You might be right and not be true. You might be true and not be you. We all have our pleasures we're guilty about not feeling guilty about. We all look for the radical reframing that lets our ass shake. We all gaze in the mirror, mouth our favorite word without speech. Even without volume, we hear it. We all watch ourselves, ask, if not these perjured women, who will make me rich? Cool. The other perhaps like key thing to know about Too Short, which is not a sentence I ever thought I would have to say. But probably the most important thing that I forgot to mention about Too Short is that he has a saying that he like does throughout his songs and like a lot of stuff where he asks, he'll be like, "What's my favorite word?" Right? And Too Short's favorite word is, I'm not gonna say it, but it's the B word. And he has a very particular way he says it, and he like holds it, and so it's like a recurring theme in his music. And so there's actually a section in the book I'm writing called "What's My Favorite Word." It's not all about Too Short, but I guess it kind of is. I don't know. I'm gonna end with this poem. Thank you guys so much for indulging my strangeness. This poem is called "Finna." Nah, do your thing. It's all good. It's all good. You could have just done it. I wouldn't even know. I'd have been like, yo, she's just trying to, do it for the gram. Like, put it on the story. It's all good. Angles. I feel it. All right, cool. All right, so this poem is called "Finna." Finna is it's my favorite word. If anyone doesn't know the word finna, Perhaps you've heard it. You probably heard it, and you probably are just not recognizing it out of context. But you'll figure it out. So I'm finna read y'all this poem. This poem's finna. So this one time, I was finna say finna in an academic context, and a voice in my head said, shouldn't you be worried about using a word that ain't a word? And I was like, word? And for a long time, that was how I let my life happen. I let my mind tell me a million no's that the world had implanted in me before I even formed questions. I let my power be dulled by my fear of fitting. But I remember a million finnas I avoided to get here. Like the day them dudes jumped me off the bus and I was finna get stomped out like a loose square. Or the day they got to shooting at the park and I was finna catch one like an alley-oop. Or the day my grandma died and my grades dropped and I was finna not finish high school except I had a praying mama and good teachers and poems to write. I'm thankful for all these finnas that never were. And when I remind myself of who I've always been, I remember why my finna is so necessary. Finna comes from the Southern phrase fixing to. Like I come from my Southern grandmothers. And finna is this word that reminds me about everything next. Even when I've been a broken boy, I know I'm fixing to get fixed. I'm finna be better. Every dream I have is a finna away from achievement. Each new love I uncover is a finna I unfold. Every challenge I choose to meet and not let defeat me is a finna I fight for. My hope is like my language, is like my people. It's black, and it's brown, and it's alive, and it's laughing, and it's growing, and it's alive, and it's learning, and it's alive, and it's fighting, and it's alive, and it's finna take on this wide world with a whole slang for optimism. Thank you guys. Thank you, David. Thank you, English Department. Cool. All right. All right. Cool. All right, stop. It's weird now. You made it weird.